there, mateys. Hey, you know, I've been cruising the Chesapeake Bay and beyond for, I don't know, 24, 25 years. And I'd like to share with you today about 16 points that I've kind of learned and I find helpful to keep in mind. I'd like to share them with you today. Now, first thing is, don't drink and drive, please. And then in the description will be like different chapters or time spots on this video that you can jump to different ones as you go along. Well, the first thing I'd like to do is just talk about the bay in general. I mean, this is one of the greatest cruising grounds in the United States. It's a sandy bottom. It is fairly shallow for most water. There's a lot of deep areas, plenty there, but there's also a lot of shallow areas. And don't take the bay for granted. I mean, you can go up and down the bay and you can see shore just about all the way along. But it can get rough and it can get a little dicey out there. So watch the weather, be particular, go out and have fun. And what's the best time of year to go cruising? Well, really, whenever you can. Now on the bay, the summer gets really hot and muggy. To me, I like the fall cruising, the fall foliage, and I like early spring. Now, especially for us sailors, the spring and fall offers some great sailing because it's a little breezier. You take July and August, even June, it starts to get hot and muggy and the air just kind of sits. You don't have a lot of wind to move you along. The second thing is, keep in mind, as I mentioned, the bay is pretty big, a lot of shallow areas, a lot of deep areas. Study your charts now. Upside down here. I use NV charts. You know, I got the paper charts. I really like them. But then it also comes with an app that you can put on your phone or your tablet and use that as a GPS chart plotter. So I do that. And it's kind of important to look at these charts because things change a little bit. Now, the paper charts don't get updated as frequently as the electronic charts. For example, here in Rock Hall, we have 2 new green buoys within the last couple of years. On the charts, it only shows 1, and it's out of place. When they dredged the channel, they moved it and they put a second one in there. So your electronic charts normally are updated pretty frequently. I know NV Charts updates it, I don't know how often, but it's very frequent because it's showing both green buoys out there and approximately where they are. Again, approximate. They just put them back out. They might be off a little bit. A key thing to remember is when you're coming into these harbors or into these areas, your chart may show one thing, or even your electronic chart may show something, and the buoy might not be where it is on the chart, but honor the buoys. Those are the most accurate. Now, sometimes they do move around a little bit in heavy storms, but the Coast Guard's very good about keeping them in their correct locations or moving them where they need to be. So by studying your charts, not only do you get an idea of where you can go and what you can do, but you can stay safe with it. Well, the third thing is, by studying your charts, you're going to know where the shallow areas are, or at least have a good idea of where they are. They're well marked on the charts and on the electronic charts. So keep an eye out for that. Well, when we talk about the shallow areas on the bay, there are numerous ones, and they vary with the tide and the winds. So let's say an area shows a mean low water of 6 feet or 7 feet. It might only be 5 feet if the wind has been blowing in the right direction and the tide is going out. You'll have a better idea of that by looking at your charts. And keep an eye on your depth sounder for these shallow areas. Another thing with these shallow areas, sometimes the water will get a little rough around there because you have deeper water and then it piles up on these shallow areas. And the fourth thing is, which goes along with the shallow areas, there's a lot of narrow channels. You know, one of the problems with marinas, they're on shore. They're in the shallow water or near the shallow water, or you have to go through shallow water to get to them. So these channels, and they're really well marked. I mean, even here in Rock Hall, it's a 7-foot mean low water. And that's pretty standard on the bay for most of these marinas, unless you're like in Baltimore where it's 24 feet or 12 feet. Deal, Maryland, and the same with Deltaville. There's a long channel there to get into the marinas, but they're normally very, very well marked. In fact, most of these, the only way you could make it any safer is if you tied a line from buoy to buoy to buoy. And if you get outside of those buoys, you could be in 1 foot to 2 feet of water very, very quickly. So be careful with these narrow channels, and keep an eye not just on the forward buoys, but the ones behind you, because you might be looking, you know, I'm looking at you guys now, and I look like I'm doing good, but the boat is going like this, but I still look like I'm on the correct side of the buoys. If you look behind you, you'll see you're drifting into the shallow area. And some of these shallow areas, your depth sounder, it's not going to give you a lot of time to react. For example, the Susquehanna Channel, now that's been dredged a few years ago to something like 12 or 14 feet. Now it's starting to shoal in again. So as they dredged that, it also made it a little bit wider. You have a little bit more time to react. But when I first started boating, that was really, really narrow, and it shallowed up quickly. And another area like that would be Kent Narrows. The thing there is, the way the channel comes in and then turns, the current can be 4 or 5 knots in there, if not more. So you have to keep an eye on that when you're entering these narrow channels. And when you finally get in, it was worth the time. The other thing is that if you're new to these areas, it may be a little intimidating at first. You run these areas a couple of times, you're going to become more comfortable with it, and it's going to become more enjoyable. And the fifth thing is, there are some areas that can be potentially dangerous. And by that I mean the weather turns, the fog rolls in, or the winds roll in. And to give you an example, let's start on the north end of the bay, up by the Susquehanna Channel there. So you have the Susquehanna River, the Northeast River, the Elk River and C&D Canal, and the Sassafras, all coming together in a relatively short space. When all that water is coming out and the tide is trying to come in, that can get a little rough. And on the other hand, with the winds, depending on the winds, it can make it very choppy. So that's an area. Another area that I've found particularly challenging at times is around the 7-foot knoll by outside the Baltimore area, where there's some shallow areas, there's some nice deep areas, and that's why it gets choppy, because you have that deep water moving along. Now it comes shallow, it's got to pile up. That area can be very, very tricky. Plus you have the shipping vessels coming and going. Further up the Patapsco, just outside of Baltimore, there's a 6-knot zone by Fort McHenry. And I had a power boat. I did it too. I'm not blaming power boats for it. It's just the way you have to do it. You're flying in there. I guess you don't have to. You can slow down ahead of time. But you're flying in there. You get close to the 6-knot zone. You start cutting back on the throttles. Now the boat, instead of being up on plane, it starts sinking down. It's called plowing water, and you're pushing a big wake. The same thing with boats coming out of Baltimore. Once they hit that 6-knot zone, it's more effective for a planing boat to power up and get up on plane as quick as possible. It's also safer because you're not pushing as much water. But while you're getting up there, it might only be a minute or two, but you're plowing, and then as you come up, your wake dissipates a little bit. In addition, you have all the tugboats coming and going out of that area. Now, most of them have moved out of the inner harbor area, and they're a little further down, so it's not quite as bad. But these tugboats push a pretty good sized wake. They don't look like they're moving very fast, and they're not. But they can push a 3 to 4 foot wake on them. So you've got to be careful of that. And really, just about the mouth of any river can be a little dicey at times. The Chester River, it's really not that bad, but it can get a little dicey on occasion, but not as bad as the Potomac. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I don't really like the Potomac very much to go across. I've been across it numerous times, and sometimes it's been just beautiful. But most of the time, especially in the sailboat, I mean, I was going across at one time. It's 12 miles wide, first of all. So if you're in a sailboat and you're going 4 knots, you know it's going to take you a few hours to get across there. But I was going across there one time, and I mistimed it. I mean, it's not the river's fault. It was my fault. I mistimed it. I was doing 1 knot in reverse. I had the sails up, I had the engine running. Now, I wasn't doing it for long, a few seconds or so, but it took me a long time to get across that, and it can become very foggy. Again, you have the commercial vessels that you have to be careful of. And down by Norfolk, in that area, of course, you've got the ocean coming in, you've got all those rivers going out, you've got the bay going out, a lot of heavy traffic, not just commercial traffic, but you have warships coming and going, you have Coast Guard ships coming and going. So that area can get a little rough also. I'm not trying to scare you off of it. I mean, go down there, have fun. I've done it, and I'm still here. Just be aware of it, that you watch your weather windows and be cautious. And the 6th thing here, talking about being cautious, look for debris in the water after storms. It can be horrendous. I mean, I have seen parts of a pier with a grill on them floating down the bay. And up in the northern bay, the Susquehanna River, where Conowingo Dam is, when they open those floodgates, a lot of debris comes floating down from that. And I'm not talking sticks, I'm talking tree trunk sizes of wood. And a lot of times these are, well, they're called deadheads or gators, short for alligator, because all you see is a little bit of it. It's almost like an iceberg. You see a little bit of the iceberg, but the bulk of it is under the water. The same thing with these deadheads. I mean, they're soaked with water. The Patapsco had a problem with that for a while because a lot of piers in the Baltimore area were deteriorating, and after storms, these massive pieces of wood would break off and be floating down that. And if you listen to your VHF, which you should have on all the time, the Coast Guard will come on and report, somebody's reported hazard to navigation, a tree trunk floating in the river somewhere, and they'll give you the location. You switch to 22 Alpha, and you'll get the information as to what's going on there. But basically, by any river is where you need to look for, or the mouth of any river is where you need to look for this debris that might be floating down there. And 7th, now crabbing on the Chesapeake Bay, man, oh man, you can't beat the blue crabs here. But that becomes a hazard to navigation on occasion with all these crab pots out there. It's almost like a minefield. Now, there's 2 basic types of commercial crabbers out there, or commercial crab pots out there. One of them, it's the one with a buoy. There's a long rope or line, and then it's tied to a huge cage, and it's dropped down, and then 20 yards or 30 yards down, there's another one. And they try to put them in a line which helps, but they're going to move a little bit. Keep in mind, these buoys they're not straight. I mean, they're going to move a little bit with the current and the wind. So give them a wide berth as you can. Try not to cut them too close. The other one is you'll see like a little flag sticking up off of a buoy, and maybe it's got a red flag on it. You look over to the starboard side, and there's another one with the same color flag, and it might be, I don't know, 50 yards away or so. Well, those can be crab pots also. On the flagpole or buoy, there's a rope, line, goes to a crab pot sitting on the bottom. Then along the bottom of the bay is a long rope, and attached to that are more crab pots. So it's basically the same thing as the crab pots, except it's not individual buoys. There might be 8 to 10 buoys or 8 to 10 crab pots tied on to that line, and as they go along, they pick them up, they dump them, they go back again. Now, most of the time, you're fine to go between those two. Now, if the water is pretty shallow, let's say you're in a 12, 14 foot water area, and you see those, well, you're good to go over that for the most part. Be careful though. Let's say that you're in a 6 to 8 foot area, and maybe your boat draws 6 feet. Some of these sailboats draw 7 feet. Well, I wouldn't go through that, because if the tide is low, you could catch one of those with your keel. So again, prudent mariners, it's your choice. Either go around them or go over them, depending on the water depth and what's going on with the weather. Another thing that you're going to find on the bay, here's number 8, is fishing boats. Whether they're head boats with taking people out or individuals out fishing, one of the key things is trolling. So these troll lines might go out 25, 40 yards or more. The other thing is they have what's called planing boards, and they look like this. Sometimes they're hard to see out there, and those can go out. I don't think there's a legal limit as to how far out those can go. So when you'll see a little convention of boats out there fishing, it's worth it to go around them, because if you try to zigzag in and out of that, you got people with long lines trolling, you got these planer boards that might be 25 yards or more away from the boat, and sometimes they're hard to see with these waves. You don't want to be cutting across those. First of all, it's not polite and courteous to do that to the fishermen, and you could damage your boat with that too. So that's one type of fishing thing to keep an eye on. The next one, number 9, are fish nets. Now, they're not charted specifically, or they're not located on the chart specifically. What you'll see on the charts is a dotted line or dash line, and it'll say fish trap area. And that might be a half a mile long. Somewhere in there is going to be a fish trap, or might be a fish trap. Now, I'm sorry I didn't get a better picture of this, but this is kind of what it looks like from the water. And this is how those things are made. I mean, look at the size of these poles and those nets. So you want to try and avoid those. And those are usually around, well, they'll be along the shore, but also by the rivers. I know there's some here on the Chester River, over on, haven't seen any up at the Sassafras, but there might be up there. South River, near Solomon's, near Deltaville, in those areas. And I know there's got to be a lot more out there than that. So just be aware that they're there. And if you're cruising in the evenings and nights, I was talking to the guys over here where I got some of these pictures from. And I asked them, I said, do people run into these? All the time. What they used to do is put a light on one end light on the other end. And what they found is people went right between them. They're not navigation aids, guys. They're there to warn you of the fish nets. So now what most of them are doing is they'll put one in the center and one on each end, and hopefully you guys don't run into these. Now, I've never run into them, and I'm sure it's a mess if you do, because look at the size of these things. Again, this is somebody's livelihood, and it's your recreation. Don't ruin your day. And number 10, of course, commercial vessels. This is a major waterway. You have Norfolk and Baltimore, which are major ports. You have the C&D Canal, which connects Delaware Bay and Chesapeake Bay. So boats coming up from the ocean, maybe they stop at Norfolk, then they come up to Baltimore, then they go through the C&D and up to Philadelphia, or vice versa. You know, or they come up from New York City, they come up Delaware Bay to Philadelphia, or they may come up Delaware Bay to Baltimore. And these guys are pushing a pretty good sized wake, and they can't stop on a dime. I mean, it can take them up to a mile to stop, so be cautious of that. Another thing to be cautious of on these commercial vessels, number 11 here, is outside of Annapolis there is a commercial vessel anchorage area, and there might only be 1 or 2 boats there. There might be 6 or 7 boats there. Try to give them a wide berth, especially, you know, let's face it, guys, if you're sailing and you come around the back of one and the wind is coming the other way, well, you've just lost all your wind. The other thing is, if you're coming around, if you're a power boater and you're coming around, how do you know who's coming around the other side? For the couple of minutes it takes to go the other direction or to go around this, I think it's better to go around it than to try and go through it. And number 12 here, well, we're talking about Annapolis, and I'm going to mention Deltaville in here too, sailing capitals of the area. A lot of sailboat races, but really anywhere that there are marinas and yacht clubs, you're going to have sailboat races. Try to avoid those. It's courteous. You're going to have more fun by not being involved in that and staying out of their way. Usually they're kind of like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, not too much during the week. But kind of keep an eye on that. Be aware that a lot of these clubs have sail races almost every weekend. Another thing, number 13 here, another thing that you'll see out on the bay are what's range lights. And you see these towers, these little giants in the water. Well, that's what they are. There's a higher one and a lower one, and the commercial vessels line up the lights, this light to this light, to know that they're in the channel, and then when they see the next one lining up, they know where to turn. Now, it's not legal to anchor next to them or tie up on them, but just to kind of know they're interesting. I mean, some of these are very interesting towers. That those are out there, try to stay clear of them. Now, number 14, a real biggie to be concerned about and be cautious of, is the restricted areas or the prohibited areas, and there's a number of those on the bay. For example, Aberdeen Proving Ground, Pools Island looks like it'd be a lot of fun to go to. That's a restricted area. They use that for target practice, or have used it for target practice. There could be unexploded munitions there, so you want to stay clear of that area. Another area would be the Patuxent Naval Base. They have a target range out there. It's on the charts. There's a couple of yellow buoys there. You can't miss it. Go around it. Don't get too close to these areas. And there's a couple others on the bay too, where there's a research center, and then there's another pier that comes way out for liquid or gas, some type of cargo ship loading and unloading. And of course, Norfolk, where the Navy base is. There's a whole line of warships there, and they've got cruise boats going up and down that. So just be careful of that. You know, and kind of like where the Navy station is and the Coast Guard station. So when you're in these areas, and even in the middle of the bay here, you'll see the Navy or the Coast Guard escorting vessels. Well, you need to stay 100 yards away from them, and 500 yards away from any Navy or Coast Guard ship. You don't want to be visited by gunboats, that's for sure. But just be aware of it. I know you see these things, you go, wow, let's go get a look at this. Use your binoculars, guys. Don't get too close to these. 100 yards, 500 yards. Stay safe out there. There's not a lot of bridges on the bay. There are some on the rivers, you know, like the Patapsco, the Rappahannock. I mean, most of the rivers have some kind of a bridge near them. You got the Key Bridge, you got the Bay Bridge, and especially the Bay Bridge here. Don't get too close to those bridge abutments because the water swirls around there. And one time, and this happened to me one time, I was sailing, and I wanted to give this other guy a wide berth fishing boat, and I got a little too close to the bridge abutments, and man, next thing I knew, the boat was going like this all over. Man, I had to jump up and work quick. I thought I was going to crash into the darn thing. So give that plenty of room because of the swirling water. And 16, last but not least, and very important too, is the tugboats pulling barges. And you'll see these tugboats, and then way back there you'll see a barge. And especially for the power boaters, don't think that you can cut in between that. I mean, I guess you could try, but more than likely you're not going to make it because there's a long steel cable that's only a few feet under the water pulling that barge. And let's say if you did clear the cable and you had a power failure, or sailboats, if you had a drop in wind, these barges, they can't stop on their own. It's being pulled maybe 6 to 8 knots by the tugboat. The tugboat can stop, but he can't stop that barge. By the time he gets back there to try and stop it, you could be over a mile, and by that time they've run you over. So just be careful out there. Have a lot of fun on the bay, and the bay is just a lot of fun. There's so many nice little towns to go and visit. There's numerous anchorages, there's fishing, there's water skiing, there's paddle boarding, there's kayaking, you name it. You can just about do it out here on the bay. I think the key thing is be cautious, have situation awareness, know what's going on around you, pre-plan, watch your weather windows, and have a lot of fun. Until next time, guys, happy and safe boating to you, your family, and friends. Cheers.